Hello YouTube, this is Greg. Thanks for joining me on the Florida Trail, doing a little bit of bushwhacking, looking for the trail. This looks like it up here. Florida Trail, if you haven't heard of it before, runs from the Everglades north and then northwest and then west and terminates at Fort Pickens on Santa Rosa Island across the bay from Pensacola Beach and Pensacola Naval Air Station. The awesome part about the Florida Trail is that it intersects some of the nicest state parks in Florida, and this one cuts across Mike Roess Goldhead Branch State Park, about 60 miles south and west of Jacksonville and about 4 miles north of Keystone Heights, which is a great little town to resupply in classic small town Florida. So here we are on the Florida Trail, and at these intersection points, I think I'm actually off the Florida Trail now. This must be one of the trails inside the park. In a minute, when I see a blaze, we'll have a look at it. See, can we get a look? This is classic Florida sandhill community. Looks like a blue blaze. Let me see, can we get it in the tree there? Blue blaze. Where is it? Is that it? Yeah, there it is. Blue blaze. A lot of scrub oak, a lot of white pine, longleaf pine. Right now I'm walking through a lot of sedge grass and turkey oak and live oak. Hard to walk around in Florida on any of the trails because there's just so much stuff. When I was a little guy in the Scouts, my scoutmaster and our leadership completely polluted me for the rest of my life for being able to just walk along a trail and not pay attention to everything. He would have us stop if we saw a deadfall pine, typically even if it's in a lightning strike. Let's see if I can find one around here. They're everywhere in Florida. Even if a tree gets struck by lightning, the sap will descend following the course of gravity, so that down in the roots and the lower branches, if you even dig in the ground and cut a piece of root of a dead tree, it will be so red and crystalline with resin, you would imagine that it was just pure turpentine. Okay, this is one of the road crossings of the trail. And in this road crossing, we should continue at this trailhead up here. I think it's the Loblolly Loop at the mill site here at Goldhead Branch. And then it will intersect again with the Florida Trail. Let's see, I have my haversack and my, well, it's not ultralight. I think it's a Sierra 70 liter. Typically my ultralight pack is a Platypus 45, and at 45 liters you're really constrained to what you put in it, so it's not hard to keep the weight down. Haversack is full of tinder stuff that I may find along the way. As I was sharing, my scoutmaster completely ruined us for being able to walk through the woods. Here is a nice piece of punky wood. If I didn't have a tin full of it already, I'd have to grab it. Great for putting in a tinderbox, throwing on the fire and turning into charred material. I passed a lake a little while earlier. Around the lake in Florida we have cattails. This time of year in February, the cattails are completely ripe. If you touch them, they nearly explode with flash tinder. Pine cones everywhere. You ever thrown a pine cone into a fire? Ever thrown a Christmas tree after the holidays into a fire? They nearly explode. So do pine cones. Ah, a friend sitting on a bench. Hi, I'm Greg.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
Barbara, where's home for you?
Oh, down the road a bit, but we've got guests from Minnesota, upper Minnesota,
Oh,
and
awesome.
they love the weather, and they love
I bet they do.
down here. They're coming down here 36 years to visit.
Barbara, say, hey, Barbara.
Hi.
Hey, Barbara. This weather's awesome for us in Florida. I was telling my YouTube channel, this is about as cold as it gets tonight in the mid-30s.
Oh,
For us around here, but for my friends up in the north, it's balmy and summery.
Oh,
For me, I'll be bundled up because I'm
Yeah.
a wuss in cold weather. Well, have an awesome time with your friends.
Thank you.
I'm going to go hike on trails.
Bye-bye.
Blessings. Where were we? Oh, cool. Snap, this must be the old Mill Creek. Oh, notice how clear the water. Well, this branch comes out of a spring that's about a quarter of a mile to the north and west of us. And tested it at almost zero oxygen. There's no fish, but super clear, super clean. I would, if I was going to trust any water source to not needing a filter, this would be it. Aha, here's our first orange blaze. And for those of you who have never been on the Florida Scenic Trail, these orange blazes are like white blazes on the AT and denote that you're on the Florida Trail. And this, for a while, according to my map, should follow alongside of the creek, and then it will make a departure over to one of the shelters that is officially on both trails. It belongs to Goldhead Branch State Park, and it belongs to the Florida Trail. And they have really, really nice ones over here. Goldhead Branch has some campsites. I love doing the Florida Trail when it passes Florida State Parks because for, I think, $5 you can stay in the primitive campsites that don't have electricity or running water. However, they have really nice shelters and places to put tents, and they do allow you to hang hammocks if the tree is 12 inches in diameter and you have 1-inch suspension straps, which kind of are the standard fare these days. So, let's see, where was I? Cattails. Oh, met Barbara. Cool. What else can you find on the Florida Trail? Cattails, fatwood. Earlier in the day, before I got into the park, I found a lightning-struck piece of deadfall pine and took the saw and my old hickory butcher knife and rendered some of it into 10-inch sections, and it was so red and so resinous and smelled so much like turpentine, it's hard to imagine that there was ever any wood in it. Yucca plants, if you are into doing primitive fire. Let's see where this goes. See the trail over there, there's a blue blaze. This probably goes down to the creek. If you're into primitive fire, my favorite deal is, oh, yep, there it is mullein for the spindle, and probably willow. Okay, let's see. I don't fall off the log here. And there's the creek again. Howsomever, all around in this community, you can see over my shoulders, are yucca and cabbage palm and century plant. And each of those, the stalk from a century plant or the central stalk from a yucca, are just the perfect density for spindles for bow drills, hand drills for that matter. The hard fronds of the yucca plant are the perfect density for hearthboards. And though I do love me some willow for hearthboards, nothing is better than yucca. Let's see. There we go. Back after my detour on the trail. The miracle will be is if I can figure out how to attach these segments together. Relatively new to YouTube, relatively new to this iPhone 6. Moderately successful. My family tends to think I'm a genius. So here we are up at an intersection where'd the sign go? Here we go. The trail breaks off and continues in the park that way, and we're going to continue this way. There should be a lake up here somewhere, and then they call it the primitive camping spot. It's nearly like the other pieces, except you can't drive out here. I guess if you were a car camper, you would have to drag all your stuff out here and hike into it. But if you're a hiker, it doesn't matter, you're walking anyway. So we'll hike along here to the north and east is a lake, and we're officially now off the Florida Scenic Trail on a short state park trail which will take us to the shelter. And typically, like on the AT, the shelters may be a little ways off from the trail proper. So is it here on this part of the Florida Trail. Recently, there must have been a burn. I don't know if they do control burns around here, but in Florida, we have a lot of convective weather. There are lightning strikes, and when lightning strikes happens in a pine scrub forest, they have a lot of burning. Great February day for a walk in the woods. Out here, passing a horse trail over to the left. On parts of the Appalachian Trail from Damascus to Harper's Ferry, there are some grades that are so steep you nearly have to walk on them on your hands and knees, and we'd be climbing up a 45-degree grade and see horse tracks. Maybe they had mules. My mules in Haiti can go nearly anywhere. Can't imagine horses going up those kinds of grades. I see out in front of me some kind of long lake. If I remember the map right, maybe that's small or large, big or little Johnson Lake. Not sure. I frequent to see YouTube videos where people are coming out here with traditional equipment. And one of my favorite things to do just for grins and giggles is to bring a old oilcloth canvas tarp, knife, axe, fire starting stuff, canteen, fish pole, and come out and eat whatever I catch. Stay for a night or two, practice primitive fire skills and that kind of thing. I don't remember whose video it was, but I saw them traipsing around like I am today. They had a more traditional backpack with a canvas tarp and basic stuff, and they found a place to string up their tarp, and then they went and found some pine straw that abounds in these kinds of communities, and raked up piles of it with his hands, made a bed out of it to put his drop cloth on. And let's see, oh, here's one over here. See if we can catch this. Let's see. If you look at the bottom of that tree, there are some scrapings at knee level and below, besides that it had been burned in a fire. And in Florida, if there's scrub marks on a tree, something did it, and it usually isn't human beings. At knee level and below, it's wild boar. At waist level and above, it's deer. And both of them have ticks. Here's our primitive area. And so we're going to, let's see, you can see the lake over there behind me. The other side of this sign is one of the shelters. And these are really great. But at any rate, my YouTube friend found a tree with some scrape marks on it. I think he commented on it. And then he scraped up a whole pile of pine straw, made some bedding, which I'm nearly certain was filled with ticks. And this is a great shelter. Got a picnic table. And let's see, usually there's a fire pit around these things somewhere, but certainly a picnic table. Another picnic table up ahead. I may have to stay here. This looks awesome. Okay. So just a little bit of a turnaround. Fire pit. Picnic table. Can't really say enough about the Florida State Parks and their willingness to intersect with the Florida Scenic Trail. Now this looks like the perfect spot. Bigger than 12 inches. Bigger than 12 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 18 feet. About the right distance for a hammock. Let's see some trails over here. There's a trail over here. Let's see where this one goes. Maybe it's not. No, that one doesn't look like it really goes anywhere. This one might, though. Nope, I'm going to take a load off here and let's see, can I manage this? Okay, pardon the funky angle. Okay. Phew, break. Okay, wow, nice campsite. I think this may be for me tonight. I've almost decided. It's early enough in the afternoon for me to think about having a break. When I was a kid and would hike with my grandpa on the Appalachian Trail, we would frequent to come into towns for a resupply, and we never ate at a restaurant and we never stayed in a hostel or a hotel. We would go to some grocery store and pick up some steaks or chicken, vegetables to cook on the fire, and for a fraction of the price of stopping and staying in a hostel or stopping at a restaurant, we would have a welcome break from our dehydrated food for dinner on at least the first night after our resupply, and we'd go back out on the trail and camp somewhere. Unless it was pouring down rain, we tried to intention to avoid all of the shelters. Even back in those days, especially the ones from Amicalola Falls to Neal's Gap, they tended to be really crowded because people hadn't gotten to the Neal's Gap outfitters and thrown their shoes over the trees and the wires over there and quit. And typically they were not only crowded, but they weren't very faithful or responsible with their food, so there are lots of mice. And where there's lots of mice, there's lots of norovirus and lots of intestinal crud. And we heard tales of people that stayed in the shelters, got a virus the next week, and ultimately had to leave the trail or take a big break. So we tried not to stay in those things. Our typical breakfast in 1969 was Pop-Tarts and Quaker Instant Oatmeal for breakfast, with some Swiss Miss hot chocolate mix. For lunch, we had whatever water was in our canteens and peanut butter and jelly. And the evening meal was almost invariably Kraft macaroni and cheese and canned tuna fish. We call it tuna mac. It's really hard to beat, probably, peanut butter and jelly for protein and calories on long distance hiking. But wow, it got old after a while. How awesome in the modern age, all the different options you have, and not just the Mountain House stuff from the REI and Walmart camping section, but there are whole cottage industries that do nothing but make a wide variety of dehydrated meals for breakfast, lunches, and suppers. You have a huge variety. And these days, we have a dehydrator at home, and it might be worth a video to show cooking a pot of spaghetti, laying it all out on wax paper on trays, chopping it up so it will dehydrate evenly, and throwing it in the dehydrator so that you can have nice meals later and a great variety. For the Appalachian Trail, the last time we did a long section of 2 months. I think we were from Harper's Ferry to Katahdin and doing mail drops for the dehydrated food. It took about 4 months of preparation to get all the food ready for that second half of the Appalachian Trail. So it takes some planning. Around here tonight, I'll be hanging in a hammock. I may come back sometime and bring a Boy Scout tarp and do a traditional thing here. On another YouTube video, I saw a friend that put his stuff on the ground. Like the other YouTube guy, he collected piles of pine straw from around a tree where there had been some scrub marks. And if there are scrub marks, as I shared before, I'm looking at a tree over here just to the right of me. There are marks from a buck, and I see deer tracks. So you should avoid hanging hammocks and putting tents up on game trails. In addition to that, if they're scrubbing on the tree, I wouldn't get any pine straw from over there to use for bedding for anything, because it's probably filled with ticks. Another YouTuber said that he had a fleece bag and he would grab Spanish moss that abounds around here. It's in, let's see, trees. Here's some up here in the tree. See that stuff hanging down in the trees? Yep, here's a bunch of it up there, that's Spanish moss. And he said he would grab a bunch of Spanish moss, put it in his fleece bag, and use it for a pillow, which is great if you want to be eaten by redbugs and chiggers, because redbugs and chiggers abound in that stuff. Now, it would be possible to make a branch tray and put it over the fire and smoke out the redbugs and the chiggers, but they're going to jump off and go somewhere. I would just avoid the stuff altogether. In Florida, there are a handful of things that you kind of have to watch out for. It's a great place to hike. On another YouTube video, I saw a friend unwinding a vine from around a tree. Let me just look around here in a cursory way and see, can I find some? Oh, yep, there's some over there on that little poplar tree. Wow, you can even see the red veins. I may have to walk over there and get a closer picture of it. He had pulled off a length of vine that he was going to crumble up, thinking maybe it was grapevine, and he used it for part of his tinder bundle, and he did. He broke it all up, rendered it into small enough pieces and large enough surface area so that it flashed pretty quick. I didn't get to see what his next video was about, but I'm guessing that maybe it took him a while to make one, because what he pulled off that tree was poison ivy. And if he flashed it and burnt it and breathed the fumes, wow, man, that would be a train wreck unless you're totally not allergic to poison ivy. In Florida, we have both poison ivy, poison oak, and poison sumac, which has single stalk. It can be shoulder to head high, but typically around here you find it waist high. It has 3 or 4 or 5 pairs of opposing leaves, and then 2 or 3 leaves that rotate on an angle and a single one off the end. And you can tell them because they usually have red leaves or red veins in the green leaves early in the spring when they first start to come out. And so you want to avoid those. If there is any redness in the leaves or the veins, you don't want to touch it or mess with it. It can make an incredible immune response that can make your life miserable for a little while. In addition to the pesky flora that we have here in Florida, the fauna is fraught with anxiety too. The invertebrate species we have are plentiful and numerous in their variety. Besides the ticks that I mentioned that inhabit the ground and pine straw and tall grass areas, we also have mosquitoes that carry viruses. I don't remember what the name of this new virus is that's taking people down and affecting pregnant mothers months later. I don't think we've had many cases of malaria in Florida, but in the Caribbean and Asia, I've lost count of how many times I've had malaria, which is protist-borne and through the blood of the female mosquitoes, contact with them. And dengue river fever is a viral phenomenon that's mosquito-borne, the same exact immune response. And people frequent to act amazed that the symptoms are the same, but an immune response is an immune response. Fever, flushing of the digestive tube at all available outlets, an immune response. We have mosquitoes, we have deer flies in the summertime that are really aggressive and swarm, and well, they'll make an end to your happy day. Don't have too many horse flies. What other kind of biting flies? Despite the myth that scorpions like to crawl in your shoe if you leave them out at night, I've never experienced that, and I've been hiking in Florida all my life. However, if you're tentative about that kind of thing, you can always get a 2-gallon Ziploc bag and put your shoes in the Ziploc bag at night so that nothing can crawl in there. We do have scorpions. They are found in the ground litter. We also have black widow spiders and brown recluse. The black widows are typically not in places you would mostly encounter in a hiking situation, but the brown recluses, yes. And you may not even feel them get you, but they secrete some kind of enzyme that causes tissue necrosis. And I have 1 or 2 spots where I'd been bitten by brown recluses in Florida over the years, and had to use nearly acetone to clean out the necrosis that landed on me as a result of being bit by those things, and they're really painful too. What else do we have besides the invertebrates that'll get you? Well, around here I crossed some creeks, and over in the wetland where I found the cattails, there were evidence of tracks that were from some kind of snake. And in this part of Florida, it's either a branded water snake or water moccasin, and they apparently compete for the same piece of real estate. And if you find banded water snakes that look nearly exactly like a water moccasin, then you probably won't have water moccasins. And really the only difference is on the water snake, the pattern band stops at the belly, and they have little black and white plates on the belly, where the water moccasins, they go all the way around. They both look like pit vipers, except the banded water snake has little round eyes where the water moccasin has slit cat eyes. But if you have to get close enough to try and figure that out, then you got too close to one of them altogether, I think. Banded water snakes will mostly run away from you. The water moccasins will come after you. They can be really aggressive. Copperheads too. On the path up here, I saw some little swishy S marks across the trail. that were fairly sizable in our neck of the woods. That's probably an eastern diamondback rattlesnake. If they're smaller, they're either juvenile species or they could be a pygmy rattler. The pygmies are little, but they pack a punch. They'll get you. So if you see those things, typically on a ridge near water, don't put your tent there. At night, the snakes don't know that you had a tent or a hammock on the way to their water source, and they will come out and go traipsing right through your tent and be a nuisance if you're not careful. Also in Florida, we do have black bears. We have a Florida panther. I've never had a problem with them. The bears are more worried about me than I am of them. Usually if you make some noise and clap your hands and bang on a pot, they'll run away pretty quick. What is a nuisance in this part of Florida are possum and raccoons and field mice. If you leave your food out, they will get in it. They say to hang bear bags for bears. You got to be a little clever about your bear bag. On the Appalachian Trail, that meant at least 12 feet high and 8 feet away from a trunk, so that a bear couldn't climb up and then climb over on the limb and get your bear bag. So it's a bit of an adventure finding just the right kind of tree set up to hang a bear bag. In the Adirondacks, the bears were really smart. They'd get your stuff anyway, so we switched from bear bags to the plastic bear canisters. And thankfully, because bears do not have opposable thumbs, they have an impossible time trying to get in one of those things. So, and you're probably thinking to yourself, Self, why does anybody go hiking in Florida at all? Well, for one, because it's beautiful. And this time of year, the weather is nice. It's an awesome, awesome time to go hiking on trails in Florida. And if you have pretty decent situational awareness and understand that there's ticks and invertebrates that'll get you, and put your hammock or your tent up in a place that doesn't have the telltale signs of game trails and wild boar and deer and that kind of thing, then it's wonderful hiking in Florida. And unlike the Appalachian Trail, for us old guys, it's flat. So there's not a lot of serious terrain going up and down. So I'm going to take a break and eat some lunch and then pack up, and I think I'm going to be here tonight. So later on I may show you my super easy, super quick way to hang a hammock with no fuss. In my backpack, most of it is taken up with the hammock and the 900 fill down underquilt and top quilt. And it's not heavy, but this time of year I end up using an 80-liter pack instead of my 45 platypus. That's my typical ultralight thing for the summer months, and you just need it because those down quilts, though they tell me you can squish them up into their little stuffed sacks the size of a softball, you really shouldn't do that to down. It needs to be fluffy and stay as uncompressed and unmashed as possible. So a little later on in the afternoon, after I've had some lunch and a nap, I'll show you how that hammock stuff worked. Thanks for stopping by. See you in a bit.